Every morning, Brooke sat in her car outside the office until 8:59. Not because she was lazy, because walking into that building felt like walking back into a life she no longer wanted. She had stopped staying late. She stopped fixing Marcus's mistakes. She stopped volunteering for work that never led to more pay, recognition, or opportunity. She came in, did what her job required, and went home. People call that quiet quitting. At first, it felt like relief. Then 6 months passed. Brooke was still in the same toxic job, under the same manager, waiting for the same people to change. She had stopped building their future, but she had not started building her own. And that is how years disappear. Worse, Brooke's withdrawal was becoming visible. Her manager had started asking why she seemed less engaged. A coworker noticed she no longer stayed late. Even Marcus joked that Brooke had stopped caring. Brooke needed to leave. But if her boss realized she was planning an exit before her next move was secure, the company could make the next decision first. Her workload could change. Her performance could suddenly come under a microscope. Brooke did not just need a new job. She needed an exit strategy. And she needed to build it without getting caught. Because the difference between employees who escape toxic jobs and those who remain trapped is not who wants to leave. It is who creates options before the workplace realizes they are planning one. Brooke did not have options yet. She had frustration, boundaries, a folder full of job postings she never applied to, and hope. Hope that the next manager would be better. Hope the next reorganization would move her. Hope one more strong review would become the promotion she had been promised. But hope is not an exit strategy. Then one Monday morning, Brooke's manager scheduled a team meeting. The first slide said, "The next chapter." The next chapter was more work. The company was eliminating 2 open positions and dividing the responsibilities across the remaining team. No additional pay, no title changes, no promotions. Leadership called it an opportunity for greater visibility. Brooke had heard that word before. Visibility was what the company offered when it wanted more responsibility without offering more in return. Brooke closed her laptop. Nothing had changed, but something inside her did. She finally understood that she had been waiting for the same system that trapped her to become the system that rescued her. That evening, Brooke opened a blank document on her personal laptop. At the top, she typed 2 words: exit strategy. Not resignation letter. Not dream job. Not someday. Exit strategy. Her first move was deciding what she was leaving for. Brooke had spent so much time thinking about what she hated that she had never defined what she needed next. So she wrote down the conditions she would no longer negotiate away: a healthy manager, authority equal to responsibility, clear compensation, real growth, a culture where being dependable did not mean becoming the permanent cleanup crew. Brooke was not looking for a job without problems. She was looking for a workplace where the problems were not the business model. Because when you leave without defining what healthy looks like, anything different can feel better. That is how employees escape one toxic workplace only to enter another wearing a different logo. Brooke's second move was building proof of her value before her access disappeared. She had spent 4 years producing results, but almost none of those results existed anywhere she controlled. The numbers were inside company systems. Recognition was buried in old emails. Her strongest accomplishments might disappear once her account was closed. So Brooke created a lawful record of her career. She wrote down the projects she led, problems she solved, money she saved, processes she improved, and teams she trained. She preserved her own performance reviews where permitted. She recorded personal contact information for people she wanted to keep. She identified former managers and colleagues who had seen her work and could become references. She did not take confidential files, proprietary information, or company property. She captured the story of her value while the details were fresh, because "I worked hard" is not a career story. What changed because you were there? That is the story another employer can understand. Then Brooke looked at her finances. She calculated her monthly obligations and began building a cushion, not because she planned to quit without another job, because desperation makes people accept bad offers. A financial runway gives you room to ask better questions, negotiate carefully, and walk away when the next employer displays the same warning signs. Brooke's third move was building options while the current company was still paying her. She stopped treating job searching as something she would do when she finally could not take it anymore. She put it on her calendar. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were for her search. Saturday morning was for networking and interview preparation. No company laptop, no company email, no company phone, no searching through company systems. Your employer's equipment is not private simply because you have a password. Brooke reached out to former colleagues and rebuilt relationships she had neglected while keeping her department alive. She did not begin every conversation by asking for a job. She asked what people were working on and listened for changes in their organizations. Then she began quiet conversations with trusted people outside her company. She asked about leadership, culture, turnover, expectations, and why positions were open. She researched companies before applying and built a targeted search around the future she had already defined. Every week, Brooke took deliberate action. One professional connection, one tailored application, one interview answer practiced out loud. Some weeks, nothing happened. Nobody responded. Applications disappeared. Promising conversations went nowhere. But Brooke was no longer waiting. The toxic job still existed. Her manager was still her manager, but the workplace was no longer the only door in the building. Brooke was quietly constructing another one. That is the exit strategy divide. Two employees can be equally exhausted, underpaid, and aware that the workplace is toxic. One spends another year talking about leaving. The other uses the next 90 days to become capable of leaving. One waits for the company to create change. The other deliberately creates options. Brooke's most important move was protecting the plan so her boss never saw it coming. She did not announce that she was looking. She did not turn LinkedIn into a public declaration of escape. She did not tell the coworker who promised to keep a secret. A coworker does not have to intentionally betray you for information to travel. One private conversation becomes another person trying to help. By the time the story reaches your manager, your private plan has become workplace information. Brooke remained professional. She stopped overgiving, but she did not become careless. She completed her work, met her deadlines, and gave the company no new performance problem to document while she built her exit. Then the interview came. The interviewer asked why she wanted to leave. The truthful answer was stolen credit, empty promises, favoritism, and years of unpaid extra work. Brooke did not say that, not because it was untrue, because an interview is not the place to make a stranger understand every injury your employer caused. She said, "I've learned a great deal in my current role, and I'm ready for an environment where I can contribute at a broader level, take on meaningful responsibility, and continue growing." She was not running away from something. She was moving towards something. 3 weeks later, Brooke received an offer. Better pay, a stronger title, work that matched her exit strategy. For a moment, she wanted to resign immediately. She did not. Excitement is not security. A positive interview is not an offer. A verbal promise is not an exit. Brooke waited for the written terms. She reviewed the compensation, confirmed the start date, completed the required process, and clarified the contingencies. Only when the next move was secure did she prepare to close the current one. The night before she resigned, Brooke opened the document she had created months earlier, Exit Strategy. Every line had a check beside it. Her manager still thought Brooke was coming to work the next morning like every other day. That was the point. The company had no opportunity to interfere with a plan it did not know existed. Brooke had not escaped because the company finally changed. She escaped because she stopped making her future dependent on whether it would. Quiet quitting had helped Brooke protect her energy. Her exit strategy helped her change her life. There may be a season when you need to pull back, stop overgiving, and recover enough energy to think clearly. But pulling back is not the same as moving forward. Do not spend years mentally gone from a job your body still reports to every morning. Do not tell everyone you are leaving before you have somewhere secure to go. Define where you are going. Build your proof. Build your financial runway. Build your network. Use personal devices. Protect the plan. Secure the next move before announcing the current one. The people who win are not always the first to realize the workplace is toxic. They are the ones who stop waiting and turn that realization into a deliberate exit strategy. Brooke did not wait for change. She created it. Her boss found out only when Brooke was ready for him to know. Now you know the difference. The only question left is whether you will build your exit before your toxic workplace makes the next move for you. And remember, The thinker always wins.